Hello everyone, today is February 14th, 2024. This is SIG K8s-Infra meeting. But as the first thing, a reminder that this meeting is under the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which boils down to be excellent to each other. I have shared the agenda document in the chat. Please leave your name in a list of attendees. I would also like to quickly ask before we start, do we have a note taker for today?
I can take notes.
Thank you, Mario. So as of the recurring topics, we have the billing review that we can do. But before we start, do we have any new members that would like to introduce themselves? Okay. I think we are mostly known to each other, so we can skip this, but if you would like to introduce yourself, you can do that anytime on CKS-Infra Slack channel. Okay, let me try to open the Taper Studio report. I hope that you can see my screen now. And let me see if I can find this. There we go. So daily spend. Okay, here we go. So we have discussed this on Slack as well, but there's a bit of an uptick in daily spend for compute engine starting with February 1st or 2nd. Folks told in this Slack that this is because of the commitment that we bought from Google for compute engine. So this is hopefully kind of expected. I think we might need to figure out some details with Google and maybe eventually adjust the dashboard. But my understanding is that what we are seeing here is normal, but maybe folks have to add something.
Yeah, so I was the one who bought the community's discounts, right? So the way it works is let's say you are using a VM that's the on-demand rate is like $50, right, an hour, right? So you'll see that charge, and then you'll see a discount for it, and then you will pay whatever you committed to. So I think we might need to look at the way we generate these formulas and make sure that the right discounts are being presented on these dashboards.
Yeah, we now have like a null project entry for Compute Engine, which I think is the sustained use commitment being charged and not to a particular project. This dashboard probably needs some fix up.
Yeah.
One
In
of
addition
the
to
other
that,
pages.
if you Mark won't be able to do this, but if you do look at the billing console, the commit, we're not utilizing up to the commit value today. But there's still usage that's not being tracked correctly. So I need to log a support case to work out what's going on there. Basically, there are charges that are eligible to be charged against the community's discount, but it's not. So yeah, someone needs to do. I need to file a support case to investigate that.
Okay, thank you for taking care of that. I think that we are, other than compute engine, we are fine. There is small uptick in cloud build here, but nothing significant. It's getting back to normal. I'm not sure if there is anything else that maybe more to date that we could take a look at. Yeah, I think this is, maybe we can look as span of a month. We are 175K per month. I think this is fine. Nothing significant out there. Okay. Anything else regarding the GCP billing report? Okay. Does anyone have the AVS one handy and might want to share the screen, or should I try to get it working quickly? Okay, I can get it working, but give me a minute. Or did anyone have to say something?
Nope.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. Now let me get back to screen sharing. And this is here fine. We can extend the period. Let's see from December to the day. Like charge type was good. Okay. I don't see anything out of ordinary here. We are 66K for now. We had this 172K last month. I think that we are doing fairly well. So the K8s-Infra Pro stuff is eventually going to get back to this number again after the optimizations that we did recently to 23K. It was 28K in January. I think that we have some uptick charge here in the EKS2 shared 001 account. It doubled since December. I'm not sure if you should check if that's okay, if cleanups are working and stuff like that. Does anyone have any idea why? Is this as expected?
Do we know what it's being used for? I'm not
honestly
familiar with
don't.
this account.
Yeah, this kind of rings a bell. This is all the AWS related AWS repositories in Kubernetes and Kubernetes SIGs org, right? Like, so I think it's that account where we moved a bunch of the things from like a private AWS account, which belonged to the EKS team, out into the open. It's for that one. So I think this is expected. I think it should be stable from this point on. We shouldn't see any more. Yes, we did turn the janitor on, and like we were looking at it and making sure that it was working. It has
Okay.
the case in it, so I pretty much sure that is what happened here.
Okay, we can keep an eye on it and see if it is going to remain stable.
Yeah, and today is the 14th, and it is 7K. So by the end of the month, it's going to double to that's a guess.
That's what I expect as well. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, other than that, yeah, we are doing good. Canary is down in cost. OBS is going up, but that's fine. And the Wasco stuff got down since we fixed it cleanup. It's now significantly down, which is a good thing. And other than that, I don't see anything out of ordinary here. Dim, sorry, talking because you're muted.
Sorry, can you go back to the top, Marco?
Yes,
So
sure.
yeah, so looking at the scale 001, that seems to have stabilized too, right? It was really high in December and January, and I think it'll end up with 24, 25 by the end of Feb. So yeah, that is stable. So I'm happy about that. All the iterations were finished. The job is finally green. It is part of a release informing now. So we are good with that.
How often did we end up running the job?
I think it's twice a day. Maybe we can reduce the frequency too. But I like it twice a day. Let's give it a month or two before we reduce it further.
Okay, I think that's pretty great if we manage to get around 25K, because if I remember correctly, that was the number that GKE 5K test costed.
Yeah.
So I think that's solid.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or feedback? Okay, I will take that as a no. And so let me see, what do we have? Okay, open discussion. I have one topic. I can go quickly about it. So, for folks that are not aware, we submitted a session for Kubernetes Contributor Summit, which is called Get Your Jobs Optimized Together. And it's supposed to be a 90 minutes workshop. We will know by Sunday if it is going to be accepted, but fingers crossed that it is. And I think that we have a solid chance to get accepted. The thing that we are planning to do is like to create a list of jobs that are like taking a lot more resources than that are actually needed across the all Kubernetes organizations, so Kubernetes, Kubernetes 6, all the repos. And we are going to use that report that will be generated. Our colleague Corey is working on that using the kubectl integration. And we are basically going to like provide that list, go through that list together, and like have a small workshop to fix some of those jobs. That's one thing. But for that to be successful, we need to have monitoring on GKE as well. So we have the monitoring stack on EKS, and that monitoring stack has been working successful for over a year. So we are sure that it's stable, that it works well, that the results are very good, that it doesn't take a lot of resources and all this stuff. It's based on Prometheus and Grafana mainly, and stuff like kube state metrics and so on. And we have kubectl deployed there as well. And what do we want to do is to deploy the same monitoring stack on the community GKE cluster, so the K8s-Infra build, or however it's called exactly. Uh, I think this should be very safe, given that we are very confident in the stack that is running on EKS, and it will be basically a copy paste of the stack. And we are eventually going to do that soon. But another thing that we are considering, because we still have a month until the the Contributor Summit, we would like to try to come up with some sort of unified monitoring, so that we have something like single pane of glass, that you have a single dashboard that's like monitoring.k8s.io, and that you can, for example, see all jobs running, and that you have all the metrics in the same place, and that you don't have to go between 2 or 3 URLs that we have. It will make stuff much easier, not only for the sake of the workshop, but actually for all day, like everyday operations. It will be very helpful. And there was a thread in Slack on SIG K8s-Infra channel about doing this actually. And Mohammed also pointed it out that we can eventually look into a stack that's something like Prometheus, Grafana, 10, or Sedlocky. And Corey and me are doing investigation about how we can make this happen. That would be like our first try to make something like that happen. We will start with a proposal, and if we can quickly agree on that, we will try to move forward, given that we have a month until the session, even if it gets accepted. If it's not that doable and that easy to come up with such a stack, one copy is something that we can do fairly quick. And that will be the resort that we will take, and then we will work. We could discuss the monitoring stack, the unified monitoring stack on the Contributor Summit together, and see how do we want to proceed if we can't come up with an easy resolution. What else did I have to say? I think this was, yeah. One concern that I have is that we will need some additional permissions on GK side so that we can deploy everything. And like that we can monitor, that we can get logs and stuff like that. I guess someone will need to help us to figure that out.
Can we not deploy this the same way we deploy other things to the cluster? I'm pretty sure we have auto deploy for like the daemon sets and other things that are running in Prow.
That's the plan. That's the plan that we use sort of how to deploy, like at least a script with kubectl apply. That's going to be run with Prow. But yeah, getting this on the first try will probably be a little bit harder. And we will need at least some access to debug to check logs to make sure everything is fine.
I mean, even if we're running the exact same straightforward deployment.
If we do one-on-one cockpit, then we can probably get the easy way. But if you do like the advanced monitoring that I was talking about, then yeah, that one is going to be a little bit harder to get to the first try.
I see. Well, I mean, IAM is managed by the groups and the repos, so we probably already have a group that has access to that project, but if we don't, we can create one.
Okay. I guess we can follow up, but this is just like a heads up that something like that will be needed eventually.
Yeah,
So
definitely support the idea. One question I had was, it sounds like the integrated one will take a little bit longer, and the one that is a copy paste from the EEKS one is going to be quicker. But you are okay with taking the additional work to do that? Okay, so in that case, that's fine with me. I don't feel that the cost is going to go up too much high either, so it feels okay to me. It shouldn't add too much burden on the cost side. Other than that, I don't have any concerns. We can figure out the ACLs.
I mean,
if we need to for sure.
Marco also found that we are actually using logs in AWS and they don't have log retention. So we have all of the logs since the beginning of the account.
Okay.
If we implement something to clean up this stuff, then we can probably, the additional cost that we get from the logging and sending the data is potentially just equaling itself out if we actually clean up our logs, because I don't think that we need logs for more than a certain period of time.
Yeah, a couple of months should be fine, or even lesser.
I think currently on GCP, most of our stuff, because it's going to Stackdriver logging, the lower bound is 30 days, but we generally haven't bumped that except like where we store job logs. I think we have 90 days on a bucket there ourselves.
Okay.
I think that should be fine. It's really not a great reason to be trying to inspect like cluster pod logs more than a month later.
Yep.
yeah, we probably can figure out if we want to keep CloudWatch logs, if we set up our logging solution, like if it goes with something like Locky or something like that instead. Maybe we don't need anything on the AVS side. On the GK side, we can keep it if it is not too expensive. I don't really have insights into how much it costs, but that's an option as well that we can consider.
Yeah, we have cold storage for the coldish storage for the job, like the jobs that we schedule, but for things that are running persistently, I don't think we need any cold storage. We just need short-term logs for debugging. And one thing I want to encourage though is that we should really look at we should keep using off the shelf managed stuff where we can, just because we don't have a lot of bandwidth here. Like open source and run it yourself is awesome, except that you need ops people, and we're already writing all the open source. Like no one here has time to also run everything and implement it. So if like CloudWatch is doing the job for us, if we should just leave that. Like similarly with the Prometheus Grafana stack, I think it's fine in the general builds projects, but like for example, if we wanted to collect on the trusted jobs, then I would be a little nervous about how well we're keeping this deployment patched and like introducing a vector for like attacking that cluster. Whereas like the clusters where we're scheduling random pre-submit jobs, that's the default state of that cluster, and we shouldn't bother worrying about that.
That's
Yeah.
a very good point.
I like that for sure. So I guess like the decision tree is like, is it something that we're going to use on all the pros across? Then you go through that kind of a consideration first, and then what are the alternatives that are there in the different clouds? Is that okay to just use those instead of using something common? So we have to take that all those into considerations while we are doing this, and the
Yeah.
answers might be different each time, right? Like it's
right.
that the answers will come out exactly the same.
But like even before we had a large K8s-Infra and we had like a smallish amount of things to run, I've seen that it's really hard to keep after just the simple things like bumping to the latest version, even if there's no breaking change, just making sure someone is like running through, deploying it to the latest one, checking that everything is fine. So we have a lot of places where we're running something really cheap and simple, like the go.k8s.io Nginx instance that is like probably 3 years out of date, and
Yeah.
I don't even want to know what's happening there. And
Yeah.
like every time we deploy another deployment, we run that risk of like, are we keeping it up to date? But if we're running things in the like in the general like E2E pool, then that isn't worth worrying about. But if later we want to solve this problem there, we might want to look at like I think on GCP you can set up, you can like have at least you can have like Prometheus compatible managed collection, and then you're not responsible for that, and that might be worthwhile for some of the more sensitive clusters.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
sensitive clusters are something we didn't thought of at the moment, and I think it's kind of okay to skip that for now. I think that as for logging, I actually like the idea to use the managed logging where possible. So for example, that we use the JKE cloud logging and that we use CloudWatch. The only thing that I would like to ping AWS folks and check with them is there were some concerns that CloudWatch is like insanely expensive and that we should use something else. We have got some like to be careful with it, but like I was looking at the billing report, and with all the logs that we have for all these months, like for 1 year of running cluster, we maybe pay about $200 per month, which is in my opinion not a lot, given that we pay about like 25K for that cluster. I think paying 200 additional for logs is something that is fine. But I will ping AWS folks on Slack probably next week because I am running into public holidays tomorrow and Friday, and we will check with them if that's like if we have a good idea about what's going on and how much it is going to cost.
It also really depends on
with regards to cost, that was one of the reasons why I didn't suggest using managed Prometheus, either from AWS or GCP for that matter, because it's pricey, very pricey. Although I know the Google's changed it recently, but yeah, we should probably carry an experiment to see how expensive it is.
I think it makes sense to just use a deployment for the non-sensitive ones. It's just a consideration for later if we want to collect that same kind of information for like the trusted jobs.
Yeah.
It also, for all of these things, we had to keep in mind that it really depends on what you're collecting. Like as an extreme case, the registry, one of the most expensive aspects of running it is the logs, but that's sort of inherent to like the volume of requests that we receive to that endpoint. And there aren't, I mean, we could like turn off logging or something, but then that's going to be fun.
Yeah, the problem is we don't pay much for compute, so it's worth it.
Right. But whereas like these clusters, if we're spending like $200 on a 25K cluster to have logs not be a problem we need to think about, that's very worth it. But if we were running something like the registry there, we might realize that like volume of logs is And it's going to change with which tests we schedule a cluster to. So certain jobs are ludicrously excessive. If there was some way for us to exclude the test pods and
We can.
move a couple of the other things like Boscos out into a different namespace and just say don't log test pods, I would do that. But I think that's probably going to be more headache than it's worth for us, and we have
Actually, not
other
really.
bigger targets.
We don't even need to touch Kubernetes. You just go to the Google Cloud, you use Terraform to do this, but basically you create a log exclusion filter, and then you put the namespace and the cluster names and stuff in there, and that's
Yeah,
it.
the problem is we run other things in the namespace that aren't proud pods because it
Yeah,
was
well, we
easy.
should change that, but that's a trivial change.
It's more involved than you would hope because some of them are services, so you have to go patch up the clients. Boscos.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, point
Can
being,
we?
I don't actually think we should worry about that right now, but we also have room to do things like that where even if we choose to use this, we can like you were pointing out, we can use exclusion filters for like we don't actually need to log these logs.
I think we can at least create an issue and like put it on the shelf, whatever we just talked about, because we're constantly people are asking us like what can they do, and like we don't have a running list of backlog at this point, so it might be helpful for that too. Some of these ideas that just popped up.
No, +1. I just thought to add 2 points. I actually thought about the same about excluding the test pods logs and SIG if you can do that only for test pods, like really for the CI jobs, not for Boscos. I will look into it for CloudWatch, or Corey will do that. And about managed Prometheus, actually, if I remember correctly, and we could try to ping Patrick and ask him about that. But I think that that's what we initially tried to do when we deployed Prometheus, and that was actually not working too well. Like there were some issues with it. I don't know exactly what issues, and I will probably need to go after like history or something like that. So it's maybe worth like trying to pick Patrick and see if he remembers like what were the conclusions of the experiment, and like try to get it documented as part of some GitHub issue or something like that. So yeah, I will discuss this with Corey next week about how exactly we will proceed. Maybe we will also try to get the copy working, like to just deploy it as it is on GKE and then figure out the unified thing as we go on so that we don't put too much pressure on us as well. But unified thing is something that we will like do our best to try to get it working because I think it's going to help us long term and like it's going to be helpful for contributors as well and for job maintainers. Okay. Anything else
Yes.
about this topic?
So Mila is here. I invited her here because I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can go back to people who give us money and tell them that it's being used properly. It's useful to the community, and it provides valuable service to the community, kind of thing. So typically what they end up doing is like when they give money to like XYZ startup or whatever, right? Like they look at revenues or some other metrics like that. So I guess for us, the only metrics that I can think of is around how like what infrastructure we use, right? Like how much, and like the trends of the infrastructure, right? Like it's going up, going down. So those are the things that we can capture off the top of my head. But then the question for the larger group here is like, how do we say that it's being useful to the community, right? Like other than ask for a survey, but then people take us for granted, right? So it's like, yeah, what do we tell them? How do we show that, so I just wanted to ask everybody here. Milad, did you want to say anything more other than what I just said?
Yeah, just really want to like thank you for all the amazing work, and I know that's very valuable. And then like I think on my end, I just want to make sure that we have the data point to back it up as the value, to back up like how much value we have created, so that we can ensure we have the continuous fund.
Right. I mean, nothing we say is going to change the number or
Yeah.
anything like that. So, don't have to worry about, the effects. It's just how do we show that, things are going fine, is a way to look at it. Mario, I think you went first.
Yeah, there was a paper published in January the 16th. I don't know if any one of you saw this, by the Harvard Business School, for the value of open source software. That basically they took companies and they took like what projects and what things do they use from the open source world, and they came up that basically only the programming was $8.8 trillion. Though the worth that open source generates is $8.8 trillion without maintenance, and I think we would fall under the maintenance field here. So I think that a good way to point this out is, I mean, we have like the amount, or we have like the amount of images that are getting pulled from or the amount of traffic that got pulled every day by our registry that we as a community provide. And basically, I would say the easiest approach is to say like, hey, you would have to build this by yourself in your own company, if it is not publicly hosted, and you would have to host it inside of your company as well. So the base cost for each company that is using Kubernetes would be this, and thanks to AWS, GCP, and all of the others, it would be this donation of those company is saving your company XYZ amount. And I guess the easiest way to promote this is in some kind of feature story by the CNCF. I know that we do something similar now for kube cost, so the cost analyzation that Corey prepared. And I guess that's the easiest way, or that this is even something that you can basically like 2 slides on a keynote or at KubeCon or something like this. I think this is the best approach to spread the word and basically put a number behind it to say like, this investment by those companies is saving your company XYZ.
So Mario, can you link me to that the research article?
I will send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea to like figure something out that we can then tell the KubeCon chairs to evangelize or incorporate into any of their stuff for sure. Ben?
You mentioned
You're muted.
You mentioned like surveys and asking the community. Are you looking like for how much Kubernetes makes value for them, or for like the infra that we're running? Because if it's the infra we're running, I think that probably we know more about like what's doing what.
I know. I was just throwing out ideas randomly.
So like for example, we could collect some stats about like the amount of, it'll be a pain, but we could probably collect some stats like, here's the amount of core hours we're using on vendors, and like here's the amount of bandwidth and aggregate. There's so many things going on that it'll be a lot easier if you pick a couple of big ones like the CI cluster and the
registry,
like the registry. Like I bet it's pretty straightforward to find out how much S3 bandwidth have we like massively served.
Right.
But getting the long tail of like all the ancillary hosts and stuff might take a while. Or like compute hours. I'm not even sure how we collect them for all the ephemeral like E2E VMs and stuff. That might get fun. But yeah, I mean it's a good question. If we want really high level stuff, I think we can speak to that. We're running a lot of CI infrastructure that's serving many needs in the project, and we're serving a ton of user traffic.
Right. It's a traditional problem, right? Like how do you show you as an open source what is the value you're bringing to the organization? This is exactly in the same ballpark, right? Like it's always hard for us to show exactly, like, what do we show? Like number of people who got jobs, number of new clusters that are coming up every month, how quickly releases are being adopted,
Well,
and
also depending on what sort of stats we think we need, we may have to invest in collecting information, and then that
that is
gets
the
sort
key.
of thorny as well, because then we have privacy and for the end user stuff.
And we don't have telemetry in Kubernetes, so like all we know is like what people pull from us.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, and even those, I'm really want to actually, if anybody has contacts at like Docker or something, I'd really love to know how they're producing the like image pulls number, because image pulls don't work like that. There isn't like one thing you can count. If we had did like every API call or something, we could like hilariously inflate it.
Ben, they are guessing.
I mean, there are some Gartner studies of adoption of Kubernetes and stuff like this that we could potentially just get our hands on. So I think that I can try at least to get some Gartner studies, and then you can basically cross-reference.
If you have like the name or the title of the Gartner paper, I should have access to it. So if you'll just let me know, I'll find.
Yeah, I can search it.
Yeah. Marco?
Yeah, I want to comment on stuff that is something that we should be a little bit careful with when it comes to this. If you say like we are spending money to save your company money, this can be perceived a little bit bad from the people who might want to potentially donate to Kubernetes and to CNCF, because they will start to look into like, why give that money for free if we can take it from the companies? And this is the wording that we have to be a little bit careful with.
That is exactly what everybody is doing now, right? Like they are taking stuff from the community, but they don't think they should give back because they don't even know that they are doing it, right? Like if you remember going back, one of the things that we realized when we were doing the registry was like a lot of the traffic was coming from AWS and it was crossing over into GCP, right? Like we didn't know that right at the beginning, and like that was part of the reason why the registry, designed the way it was. I don't know what was I trying to say. So if people need to know what they're using from us for sure, but I don't know how to make it clear to them what they are using, because everybody, like, we can't say how many clusters, we can't say like how many workloads. That's again goes back to telemetry, right? Like we don't collect telemetry, so we don't have like aggregate numbers, and like we don't have any information of what exactly they're doing in their own clusters.
Well, it also flipping it on its head a little bit. If you as an end user are relying on the things that we provide, and don't want to participate, then you should have some idea like how much of a commitment are you relying on? Like you're relying on Amazon and Google providing millions of dollars and resources to run this. If you realize that a big chunk of that is the pieces you directly depend on, then that might actually make you want to invest.
Right.
I don't think that's a bad look.
Yeah, the other thing, for example, is like I was thinking about like how many times have we told people, hey, create your own cache all the images that you use in your own registry. Like we don't even know how many people have actually done that, or whether they are keeping things up to date.
We know because the Artifactory instances absolutely spam the endpoint.
Right.
But
Okay.
we don't know like exactly how many unique users or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, image pulling is also like really fuzzy in that sort of situation.
Right.
There isn't a clear standard for how do you like count them.
That is the pull through cache you're talking about, right?
Well, in any case, because there's like multiple layers of caching, right? Like all major clients have like local deduped content store. So when they pull things, it varies quite a bit what they actually wind up doing, exactly how they interact with the registry and what exactly they download. It's not like downloading a single file.
Right.
But so it's possible to produce something, but most of these stats I think are it would be easy to produce something pretty misleading, and I'm not sure how we avoid
Yeah,
that.
I'm not trying to rush or anything like that. Like I want us to think about it while we are going around doing stuff, especially we were just talking about like the integrated UI for monitoring and things like that, right? Like if we start putting the building blocks and slowly over a period of time, maybe we can put something out for KubeCon NA, right? Like it doesn't have to be for Paris. So I just want us to be thinking about it while we are going around doing this.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
we used to collect some stats for Prow with things like how many jobs we ran each day
Right.
to give some idea of the scope of what's being supported, and that's pretty useful.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think also I really understand sometimes it's not just a number. Sometimes it's a story. Sometimes it's that we achieve a goal, and then that can ultimately help us to go somewhere. And then I think like working with other projects though, we are thinking about like, especially I think last year we have achieved a lot of milestones, or we have our goals and we like achieve them. Then maybe from that perspective, like what kind of metrics we used to measure our success in those goals? I think those can come up with a good story. Like surely there is a function reason, a business reason behind to drive all those goals, right?
Yeah, for us, it's mainly about trying to keep the community healthy, sustainable over a long period of time, and also moving things to community from different. We don't have to rely on specifically on different providers. We are trying to bake those tenets into things that we are doing going forward too. For example, we've been talking with Microsoft folks for a while about how things would work. The other recent one was Oracle. We still haven't figured out exactly how we'll use the Oracle credits that was given to CNCF. But we've done other things where we've been able to incorporate things pretty quickly. There is definitely like an overall vision of like how things should work between all the people on the team, but we don't have it written down or something like that for sure.
I mean, what is interesting to tell, especially when it comes to storytelling, I would say is basically the story of last year, right? So where we basically say that, hey, we managed it with help and support of all of the vendors to stretch to at least to 2 clouds, so the infrastructure to 2 clouds, and optimize even the distribution of the packages and the images. I think this is a story that can easily be told and also fairly quickly be told because it's already done. We just need to write it down.
Yeah, for that part, I would love to support on that part. So I think that would be very helpful. That's a story that we really want to tell to raise the awareness.
Mario, we literally started from zero last January, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm currently supporting the KubeCost folks with this. Maybe I can, Mila, if you ping me, just then we can basically draft something and then give it back to the SIG for review, like that we have a story. I think that makes the most sense.
That's great.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, folks. Anything to add to these static questions, or do we maybe have any other topic?
I think
We have outages, which is the reason there's not like a lot of bandwidth for investing in metrics. I think the registry outage is fairly resolved, but there's still a Boscos outage, which is not strictly SIG K8s-Infra, but it's kind of the same pool of folks that are actually around at this point touching infra things. The rest of the people that are active in SIG testing are kind of touching like the test framework and stuff, and not the infra at this point. We could almost I mean, we're approaching a point where we could probably narrow SIG testing down to like the tests and the test tools and fold all the infra things into K8s-Infra because it's the same people. But
The
that
Bosco
aside,
thing is pretty annoying, and it's kind of annoying because it's happened, that failure, especially in that particular mode, has happened a few times in the past, right? When Google loses a region, for example, last year when we lost the French region for a while, right? Boscos was wrecked.
that's not what's happening.
No,
as
well,
far
you
as
can't
we know.
delete global resources because one of the regions that it's in is not available. I believe the error message, right?
The error messages I was seeing didn't suggest that.
Cleanup was bugging out because you couldn't delete networks, right?
Yeah. Hold on, let
And
me pull the paste.
even though it's a global resource, we've seen that behavior in the past where he creates stuff. He has child objects in a region, and if one region is bugged and doesn't work properly, good luck in deleting it.
yeah. So Marco's asking a question. Can we create an issue and throw the logs and the snippets there? And because we should show how we do triage, right? I think
Yeah.
Ben started a call as well. So thanks, Ben.
We're cheating by saying we're blaming the dodgy fault on incorrect API responses, which is true, but we could mitigate that by tweaking the way we consider network deletions.
Yeah, the mechanisms, back off, and things like that, Mohammed.
No. So what I'm saying is we delete a network, right? And if we generally assume there'll never be errors because that's what happens when life is great. But when there's an outage, there's always errors. So we need to swallow the error and release the project, which we're not doing now.
Well, I mean, if we can't clean the resource, then we have a problem.
Right.
We're gonna run out because there's gonna be a quota for those as well, which is why we require them clean. I don't actually see evidence yet that was because of the regional outage, but I guess we'll know soon enough because the regional outage is
should be cleared.
Clearing up. Yeah. So if it clears up on its own, then that is the case. But we have other issues where the common pattern I've seen is that people start using another resource type that we don't have. I think we probably could write a more elaborate janitor that's capable of doing these things, but again, no one develops the janitor right now.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the janitor is not great, but I mean that's not surprising considering it's a Python script that's like 10 years old that no one works on.
I can go fix it if I know, like if people tell us what they are doing. Otherwise, a lot of the times I don't have access to the.
Well, I mean, another thing is even the deployment. I'm not even sure how I would like get an updated one deployed. Like I don't know how we're doing that currently. I tracked down some files in the
part
repo,
of the
but
image bumps, so like with the rest of Prow. So it's
but there's different ones. So this is running continuously in the Prow cluster. Is that pulling the Python script?
Yeah,
That's the other thing. We've overloaded the janitor, and there's like a couple of different things that are Boscos janitor that are not the same thing at all.
One question. Go ahead. Finish us. Sorry.
So I just want to clarify. So if we make a change to the Python script, then what, we do a Prow images bump and it picks it up?
No, so you update the janitor, and then once you update the janitor, the PR gets merged and a new image is released. And then our auto bump picks it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. but see, like that's what I'm saying is it's gotten to the point where like I couldn't have even told you that we really don't have many people touching this, and that solved the problem. I raised this internally, but I don't know that I'm gonna get anyone to bite on that.
Yeah. Let's see if you can identify the things that we are facing, and then I can go probably take a look at that, or Mohammed and I can do that.
One thing that I wanted to ask, is this now mitigated so we are not blocked on Boscos anymore? I mean, tests can run, right?
Say that again.
Yeah, I think the question was, are we now mitigated? Can tests now run, or are tests still blocked on Boscos?
I don't know. I've been in the call.
Let me check.
I would wait for a few hours and then start doing retests.
We can follow. There's the. Whoops, there should be a stat.
I posted the link on Zoom chat. There seems to be, if I
It
look
looks
at
like
the
it-
client
Dashboard is
dashboard,
looking great so
It looks good
far, but
now.
Yeah.
it's starting to get worse though.
Yeah, it's going back. I think maybe just we backlogged things wanting to test while that was happening.
Yeah.
Because you can see a similar trend before we got too many cleaning projects. So I mean it's better, but like we're still kind of pushing it. We're using most of the quota right now. It's an interesting thought to just ignore the error. I don't love that because I mean we can just wind up
Well,
hunting
we
the
could
failure
we could
mode.
read the error codes, right? And we know which error codes we definitely don't want to ignore, like 40X's. We can't ignore those. But when
Yeah,
the
but
cloud
I'm
plays
looking at the
up,
logs. I don't see a clear signal that it was that it was like a global failure because of a region or something like that. From what I can see in the logs. But I don't know. If that's possible, then I mean, help. Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left. We can follow up on Slack for sure.
The only thing I would add is I looked into the that cost issue earlier. It turns out for like 3 or 4 hours in the day, we schedule way too many tests and we spike into like 4 or 5 times, like 3 or 4 times our like base hourly usage, which is not covered by the commit. So you're paying on demand rates for those. I added a screenshot of that to a thread. So I probably to watch that one morning and start rescheduling, start changing the crons and intervals on some jobs.
Do we know that it's cron jobs and not people submitting PRs?
Let me put in chat here.
Because in the past, when I've looked into Proud Trends, which passed, been a while.
No, because
they've
this
really
is
heavily been
happening
biased
at
by that.
let's say it's happening at between 9 and 10 months. Time's a bit sketchy on this thing.
So in the past we had a couple of spikes because it was different regions coming on and submitting all their PRs.
Oh, okay.
So it may be cron, it may not. Probably worth checking.
Yeah, I gotta go, peeps.
Right, Dims.
Hopefully I'll see all of you in Paris if I make it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this time.
Good. Bye.
Mom, we can follow up offline.
Yeah, we can talk offline. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just gonna add the tangent onto that screenshot, which happened. But yeah. All right then. Thanks everybody.
Thanks. Have a nice evening.
Thanks,
Day.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.